Want to join us? Okay. Yeah, we still have empty seats in front, guys. Come forward. No? All right. How are you today? Thank you for coming for another dojo event. Are you excited to? So actually, the event is like for members only, but I have tons of emails. Seems like Dai here is very loved. Let's give applause for Dai. A lot of yeah. A lot of people are like really want to come to his talk. So yeah, why not make it like a big party? The bigger the merrier, right? So yeah, my name is Anti. I'm the event coordinator of Dojo, and I'm very happy to be able to host Thai's last event at Bali before leaving to wherever you're going for your next adventure. Yeah, so take pictures. It's gonna maybe the last time you're gonna see Thai in Bali for a little while. Yeah, but don't think about that. Let's just enjoy Thai's presence with us today. So the event will be about 1 hour. There're gonna be question and answer session two later. So feel free if you want to ask questions, feel free to raise your hand. Let's make this event interactive. Are you ready for day? Yay! All right. So that's all from me. I give this event to Thai.
Wow. You know what's crazy is 2.5 years ago when I came to Bali, the very first talk I did in Bali was here at Dojo. It's like neat to see this full circle, the journey, the full revolution. It's gonna be hard leaving. Got a lot of friends here, a lot of communities here. Well, it's really gonna be hard. But I gotta be honest, as much as I'm gonna be missing Bali, I've been missing my family a lot more. I don't know if any of you can relate to that. But we find ourselves here. Some of us aren't from here originally, so we've probably left families at some point in time to go off on these adventures, these journeys. Hero's journeys. Have you heard that term before? Hero's journeys? Hero journey. Yeah, it's kind of neat. Joseph Campbell, he passed away in the mid-'80s, but he wrote a book called The Power of Myth. And in Power of Myth, he talks about this hero's journey, and it's something that all of us can relate to. Because at some point in time, we're called to adventure, to a challenge, to do something different. You know, it's like that little thing that sort of starts as a little bit of a butterfly in your stomach, but then it builds, and it builds, and it builds. And then you're faced with a choice. Am I gonna do something about this? Am I gonna quit my 9 to 5, move to Bali? Will I drag my family with me? Whatever it might be, there's this challenge, and then we rise to the occasion. And then we go off, and we conquer the challenge, or at least we try. But no matter what, by facing that challenge, we are changed, and we're changed forever. We're changed. Think back to all the conflicts that have been in your life, all those moments where you thought, I'm going to go left, and it was like, oh man, I really should have gone right. You learned from that experience. You gained knowledge of yourself, but also a very clear wisdom, if you will. Pretty powerful. And what's really interesting is once we overcome this challenge and we come back changed, we feel this deep need to try to help others with similar challenges now. I don't know about you, but how many people in this room are a coach or a mentor? It's okay, don't be shy, it's all right. Well, I've met a lot of coaches since I've been in Bali. But I've also met a lot of people that have great expertises, typically in areas where they were originally dealt with a struggle. A lot of us find businesses in those areas. Some of the greatest startups were because of that. People recognized there was a problem. They came back and wanted to solve it. But there's that idea of going from me, mine, my journey, to now I want to pass it on to others. Joseph Campbell's Power of Myth actually inspired George Lucas to write Star Wars. So it's got some pretty good validity there. In his book, there's this question. Whoa. Auntie. It's probably my... This question. What's going on? This one! Okay, let me, it might be my batteries. It could be my it might be my battery. Oh, here we go. I think it's my batteries. I might have to flick it on and off. Okay, this question. Are you following your bliss? And this idea of following your bliss is literally taking that path and choosing the path to optimize joy, fulfillment, and purpose. Sounds pretty beautiful, doesn't it? Are you following your bliss? Are you? I would probably hazard a guess if we had some moments here for all of us to share our stories and how we got here. You're probably following your bliss to some extent. That's why I'm so inspired by the communities here in Bali, especially Dojo and Ubud. These are people that are constantly living their bliss, let alone following it. Pretty darn cool. But questions are really powerful, chemically especially. When we hear questions, whether they're rhetorical or not, serotonin gets released in the brain. A little bit of serotonin. You know, serotonin, it makes us feel pretty good. It actually helps relax us. And when our brains become relaxed, we start to get creative. We start to seek the answers. And you want to know why we want to find the answers to things? Because then serotonin's followed up with dopamine. Dopamine's very good. Very good. Next to adrenaline, it's like right up there, man. Party drugs, right? Dopamine is amazing what it does for us. But it makes us excited to keep going, to accomplish new things. I mean, does anybody like making checklists? I have a checklist of checklists. I don't know about you, but you know, when you check things off the checklist, you get like, oh, yes, I did something. That's why productivity is so cool. We see actions get completed, and it makes us want to do more. So the questions that we're sometimes asking or not asking are very, very important. Not only chemically, but also to really get clear on what it is we want and where we want to go, or more specifically, why do we want to go there? So as we continue here, this is my idea of a hero's journey. I thought it was pretty nice for digital nomads, you know? It's like, I seriously want a cape. I want to be doing like client calls with a cape on. I think that would be so badass. But, you know, there's these hero's journey. We feel called, and we're in a very fortunate industry, if you will, if you call it the digital nomadic industry. There's people that work online because you are location independent. It's pretty cool. It really plays into a lifestyle, if you choose to live that lifestyle. But following our bliss. Now, as we start to move here, because we all want to know where are we starting our journey, you need to know where are you beginning. So this is to simplify the process for you. You're all here right now, okay? Somewhere. We're over there, right? Because once you know where you are, you can start to ask questions, especially around vision of where you want to get to. How do GPSs work? Well, you need to plot a course. You need usually a couple points. A place to start at and a place to get to. You use Gojek. It doesn't always go in a straight line, but more or less, right? I like the caterpillar because I like this sort of analogy. Caterpillars are pretty cool. But what's really cool about caterpillars is when they turn into butterflies. There's a story of a little boy that finds a caterpillar. And this caterpillar is pretty cool. He puts it in a jar, takes it in the house. He's like, Mommy, Mommy, check out my caterpillar. Well, very cool. You should look after him. Give him some leaves, nurture him, because maybe one day he'll turn into a butterfly. Fortunately enough, a few weeks later, he wakes up one morning, and there's a little cocoon in there. He's like, whoa, I know what happens after this. A few more weeks pass. He's nurturing it, making sure that the environment is just right. And then one day, it starts to shake. It's shaking. It's moving. He's like, oh man, something good's going to happen here. A little hole tears away. The caterpillar, which is now obviously turning into a butterfly, is trying to emerge, trying to press its way through this little hole. The little kid freaks out. He's like, oh my gosh, he can't get out. Oh no. Runs downstairs, grabs some scissors, runs back up, opens up the jar, starts to cut along that little hole to free the butterfly. Butterfly plops out, spreads its wings, can't fly. Boy is devastated. Doesn't know why. Doesn't know what's up. Mom's a little confused too. She's like, I don't get it. What happened here? Let's take the butterfly to school and talk to your science teacher. So he goes through this process, goes to the science teacher, explains what he did, you know, about freeing the butterfly. Science teacher then educates him. He says, well, here's the problem. When that butterfly is emerging from the cocoon, it has to struggle. It has to fight because it's filled with fluid and inflammation from that process of turning from caterpillar into butterfly. And if it doesn't press through that tiny little hole and force out all those fluids, the wings can't work. It's the struggle in nature that often provides us with the biggest results in our lives. And I know when we're going through struggles, like struggling to get out of a cocoon, and when we're in the moment of dealing with that struggle, there's rarely anything more challenging at that moment. I mean, how many people here have been in that situation where it's just like, I hate this. Life sucks. Can it get any harder? But then what happened? You probably persevered. You probably continued to move forward. You adapted. You changed. You evolved. And you came out the other side and you're like, whew, that wasn't that bad. We have this different changed perspective. And then what do? Well, we go and we find the next challenge. And this is just sort of how nature works, like the butterfly. We don't want to find shortcuts, right? Do you know what this is? Anybody? Sand. I did not know that. I had to look this up. I found the photo. I was like, what does sand look like under a microscope? And this is what it looks like. Do you know that, like, we see very, very little in the entire world? Like, there's our amount of understanding of what's actually outside of our bodies is so limiting. It's crazy. And yet, based on the things that we can see, we dictate how we live our life. We make judgment calls so darn fast. The last stats that I heard, like, I don't know how these scientists study this stuff and how they come up with these numbers. Chances are most of the statistics are made up on the spot. I heard it's like 82%, but debatable. 60 to 80,000 thoughts a minute. Or sorry, an hour. Or is it a day? It might even be a day. 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Like, how do you monitor that? Can you imagine that amount of information coming into your head every single day? Like, how do you process that? You have to create filters. You basically have to get down to some basic needs here, needs assessments. Do I like it and want more of it, so I move towards it? Or do I not want this? Do I move away? This is where fear comes in. It protects us. It really does. It keeps you alive. You're here because of some fear, guys and gals. Fear kept you here. You're alive because of it. But certain types of fears, and too much fears, especially when it goes unchecked, man, it limits us a lot, doesn't it? Sand. We see very little. Remembering this, it just will be a nice reminder that there's a lot we just don't understand. But you can either look at that and be intimidated by it, or you can embrace the fact that, you just don't know. And you know what? Maybe things will work out. What motivates us? Anybody know what this is? I know, William, you know what this is. What is this? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. My kids, they look at this and like, Dad, that's dumb. My kids are like teens now, so they really talk back. But this is their idea of needs analysis, right? That's very true, especially when you're a teenager. Needs, like this idea that we're chasing self-actualization. This idea of really knowing who we are and understanding what is our purpose in this world. It's a really hard thing to comprehend and to really get clear on. As much as I was talking about the hero's journey at the beginning, we go off on these grand adventures, these challenges, and we come through these challenges changed. We still have to ask ourselves, what do I really want? A lot of it has to do with safety. Love from another, self-love, understanding. What's my purpose in this world? Who's ever asked, what's the meaning of life? Anybody ever wondered that? You know what the funny thing is about that question? You already know the answer. We all do. Because we each subjectively give life meaning. So it's a weird question to ask. Like, what's the meaning of life? Well, actually, it's whatever you determine it to be. Seems really simple. It seems almost too easy. And what happens when we think it's too easy? We ignore it, right? And there's a great story. Because when I think about needs and what motivates us, and some of you may be familiar with the story, maybe you've heard of a gentleman by the name of Les Brown. Les Brown's one of my favorite orators. He delivers beautiful speeches. He's also a wonderful author. He's an American guy, very charismatic. I saw him at an event about 20 years ago, like almost 20 years ago. It was a long time ago. And he talked about this young man that moved to a neighborhood, and in this neighborhood, there was this old house, and on the porch in front of this old house was an old man that was arguably older than the home, sitting in an old rocking chair with an even older dog to his side. And what set this house apart, especially the dog, besides the creaking of the rocking chair back and forth, was the dog moaned and groaned and cried all the time. Like 24/7. If it was awake, it was crying. That's my best dog, okay? But he's crying all the time. All the time. Eventually, the young guy, who's a dog lover, by the way, decides to go up to the old guy and find out what is going on with his dog. So he goes up to the old man and he asks him, like, why is your dog always crying? Well, he's just sitting on a nail. The dog's sitting on a nail? Well, why doesn't he get up? Get off the nail. Stop crying. The old man just looks at him. It just doesn't hurt bad enough. Just doesn't hurt bad enough. I love this little story because how many of us have these little nagging pains? You know, and maybe it's literal pains or metaphorical pains. These little things that we put up with, we tolerate. It's a nagging thing. You could call it a pet peeve, if you will. But there's these little things that just irk us, upset us, hold us back, make us sad, make us depressed, make us angry, yet we tolerate it. When you really think on this, it's like, what nail are you sitting on? You know, what is that one thing in your life that you just need to stand up and actually move away from that? It can't be that simple. But again, is it motivated? Are you motivated to do that? Are you motivated to change? Because change isn't easy. It's hard. I honestly think it's one of the biggest fears is the fear of change, is the fear of unknown. It ain't easy. It's worth it most of the time, but it's not easy. Change, this guy over here, oh man, this is me at 14. I was morbidly obese. I was really big, like really big. And don't like feel sorry for me. I got there at all my own volition. Literally, I ate a lot of junk food, high calories, low nutrition value. Played a lot of video games. In fact, anybody played Street Fighter 2 here? Actually, you guys are probably way too young to even know what that is. But it was a fighting game, and I could beat the kids in the neighborhood in the Super Nintendo with my feet. Okay, I was mad skills. Okay, I was the boss of Street Fighter 2, and it would really upset kids because I'd win money playing with my feet. I played a lot of video games. I sat around a lot, watched a lot of movies. From 9 to 14, I kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So one day I was like, got out of the shower. My parents had separated at 9, and we can go back and talk about early trauma that developed all these habits and blah, blah, blah. I've done a lot of work. I don't need to recap that. But I basically figured out what was going on and made some changes. But at the bottom line is it came to this one day where that little nagging nail hurt so much. Like so much. I was looking in the mirror one day and I did the scan up and down. Normally my trick was I would stay in the shower just long enough that when I would come out of the shower, the window would be all condensation, like the mirror. So if I looked at it, I was like, I can't see me. Thank goodness I was also born pre-Google. You know, I was a teen. There wasn't cell phones like there are now, so I didn't have to hide from phones. You know, but if there was any cameras coming out, you couldn't find me. I shied away every moment from anything like that. Socially, especially, I developed a lot of anxiety, very self-conscious, low self-opinion, all the usual stereotypes and cliches that come with somebody in this kind of state of unhealth. But this day, I'm looking at myself up and down in the mirror. It was, up until that point, the hardest thing I've ever done in my life was to lock eyes with myself and to really understand where I was right then and there. Like fully aware and own my situation. I broke down. I know there's memes out there that show ugly cry. Like it was ugly cry. 14-year-old boy, ugly cry. Prepubescent, early boy, ugly cry. Okay, like it was not pretty. I was in there sobbing for quite a while. A lot of thoughts of suicide, ending my life, all the usual stuff came up. No one's gonna miss me. But you know what? The idea of death scared the crap out of me. Like, that finality scared me. And that idea of dying, in fact, scared me more than the idea of just maybe actually changing. You know? Because I knew the pain of going through the change would be far less than the pain I was going to endure if I decided to continue to live my life in that state of unhealth. I got up off the nail. Took 20 months of work. I tell my kids, I went to the library, got books out. Oh, Dad, you're a loser. But, you know, just Google it, man. But yeah, I got some books out on nutrition and on fitness. My parents supported me at this point. You know, every time before that, my parents were like, hey, we'll pay for karate classes. We'll get you a personal trainer. We'll hire a nutrition. They would tell me all this stuff the way they wanted to support me. I was like, no. Imagine a teenager. It's like, no, I don't want this. I'm not going to do what you're telling me. But that day, I wanted it for me. I know we all have stories like this. It's part of our hero's journey. We all have stories, and there's lots of relating going on between our stories. There's certain levels of empathy that we feel when we hear people share stories like this. Because I know you've had similar struggles, and you've chose to do something differently than what you were doing up to that point to change. The cool thing is that process can be repeated any single time you want. Anytime. But when we're going through it, man, feels like everything's impossible. It's wild. It's wild. Chair. Okay, I like the chair analogy. You're in these chairs. If you guys were to balance back on 2 legs, I see some fit dudes in the audience. Sasha could do this right now. He'd be back there on the 2. I know you'd be surfing on the chair. And then all of a sudden, you know what inevitably happens? There comes a point where all of a sudden the chair slips. Have you guys ever done this in the chair when you've been balancing? And all of a sudden you catch yourself and you land back on all 4 and you're like, holy crap, that could have been really bad. You know that sensation, that feeling, that instant hit of adrenaline, that fear, that, whew, I am alive. Could have been really embarrassing. Could have hurt. We have those moments in our life all the time. We've just learned to tune them out. I had one of these moments just a number of years ago where literally I went and did a Tough Mudder. Anybody done a Tough Mudder here, ever? I used to coach people. Yeah, great, thank you. You know, I used to take like teams of 50 through Tough Mudder. And I hated running, so I would always make sure I was encouraging people that didn't like to run to finish Tough Mudders, because then I could just follow along, help them over the obstacles, which was my favorite part. But because there was so much running, and I wasn't a runner, I developed this little rash on my thigh. Didn't really think anything of it. Jumped in a hot tub after Tough Mudder, because that's what you do. You know, you soak those weary muscles and hope that you start to aid the recovery process. Hot tubs are really dirty, just in case you're wondering about bacteria. They are cesspools. But what ended up happening, I got a systemic infection. Started shutting down all my functions in my body. It was the craziest thing. I was hospitalized for like 8 days. Half of it, I didn't even know what was going on. I was like high on stuff. I had no idea what was going on. I had a crazy fever. We were worried I was going to die. Started running all these crazy tests. Bone marrow biopsies. They thought I might have a form of leukemia. Turns out I have an autoimmune disease, which I didn't even know about. Because basically, I'd been living a certain lifestyle that was very health-focused, so it masked a lot of these symptoms. It started to make sense when they said this, because I used to get sick quite often. I never really thought anything about it. I was just like, man, I'm just lucky that way, I guess. But it was this moment where they were doing some of these tests for leukemia. A lot of fear built up in me. My kids were really young at this time. You know, like under the ages of 6. And when you're faced with this possibility that life might end, and not by yourself, you know, not by my hand, like this is out of my control, like this is happening, you start to look at life a little bit differently. It's like that chair, rocking and catching yourself, because the day that the doctor walked in and said, you're okay, we think it's this. For those that have an autoimmune issue, that's actually medical terminology for you've got something, we're not really sure what it is, but we think it's sort of in this area. A lot of people have autoimmune issues today. So to the best of their knowledge, I have something called autoimmune neutropenia. So we learn how to treat it based on how I live my life. But things changed that day. Changed a lot. Especially conversations with people, the way I showed up. I started also looking at my career. At that time, I was working a very much a career position that I thought was it. This is my path. This is what I'm meant to be doing. And the crazy thing is I started thinking about change. These things kept coming up. I don't know, can you guys relate to any of these? I bet you probably felt these at some point. You're in this room for a reason. You're here in Bali for a reason. These started coming up all the time. And we got to be faced with these questions. We got to start asking ourselves, right? Like, why is this coming up? What am I going to do about this emotion? Is it that little nail? Is it nagging at me? Am I just going to accept it, or am I going to do something about it? So this is where we're going to get into stuff. These 3 Ps, passion, purpose, process. Like, what do these terms even mean? What does passion mean? It's a term we hear a lot. Do we really know what that means, or what does it mean to you? And when I start looking into it, I think back on Steve Jobs. I don't know if you've ever seen the Stanford Address. Amazing YouTube video of him giving this graduation speech, this commencement speech to the graduating class of Stanford. And this is after he was cleared of pancreatic cancer for the first time. So I don't know if you know his story, but he was cleared of pancreatic cancer. So here he is, back in the public realm, and this is one of his first major appearances. And he shared in this speech this quote, this practice that he developed, where every day he would literally look himself in the mirror and ask, you know, if today was the last day to live, would I be willing to do what I'm doing right now? And if the answer was no, too many days in a row, he knew things had to change. Do any of us have a practice like that with a singular question that we use to guide us? I'm going to share a few of my questions. I've shared them on these pieces of paper. I'm going to invite you to use some of these questions for your own life, to clarify things, But because of his passion, right? His true passion for what he was doing, what he was building, this community, this culture that he's global expanse. He's really changed everything, hasn't he? Kept going to work. You know? It's pretty powerful. What's your big dream? I often hear coaches refer to this, like if you had as much money as you want in the bank, you had as much time to do anything, right? You could achieve anything and literally try anything. What would you do? It's a pretty big question, isn't it? It's like, well, what would I do? Most of us never actually even dream of that potential because the idea seems too overwhelming. It seems almost impossible, and there's no way it'd ever be like that. But why not? What if you even had a quarter of that? A tenth of that? I think life would be very different than it is right now. Sometimes it's just nice to ask the question, just dream. I think we forget to dream sometimes. We forget to allow ourselves to dream. There's a really cool thing when we move into purpose now. So there's this passion, there's this thing that excites you, there's this thing that you like to do no matter what. Fires you up, right? And then we have this thing called purpose. And when I look at purpose, I love a concept called ikigai. And I was first introduced to this when I did some studies about the blue zones. Have you guys heard of blue zones? It's these 5 little areas, little cities, municipalities in some cases, where they have people that live to be 100 years or older. Like, and I mean, they're not people like we're probably, well, especially in Canada, if you're living to be 100, you're probably somewhere on medication waiting, right? Like you're waiting for just that day. Like you've won the lottery if you've made it that far. But these people, you look it up. There's videos of these people, like these little Japanese women out in their gardens doing the jig, you know, like loving life, like thriving, loving life at 100 plus. And what they did was when they studied this in these 5 areas, they noticed that there was 9 recurring themes, like 9 common things. One of the things was purpose. This deep sense. This lady right here, she's like the fastest, oldest person on the planet. 100-meter sprint, 17 seconds. That's no Usain Bolt, but you know, pretty impressive. At 100, if I can cover that much ground in 17, that is impressive. She's not an outlier. It's not like this is an anomaly. There's lots of people that do these. And in certain populations, like the 5 I just shared with you, it happens quite often. It's weird, right? It's like, okay, well, this is something here. There's something to this. And so when you look at these 9 themes here, yeah, largely plant-based diets. They eat a lot of plants. It's not to say that they don't eat animal proteins. It's just the majority of their calories come from plants. They do have a little bit of alcohol. Some of my clients really like that part. They stretch that one just a little bit. Wine at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock. Okay. But they move every day. They relax a little bit. They chill, right? They have a relaxation, basically a stress management strategy, a way to chill out. But they have great communities, strong family relationships. They feel like they're part of a community. Deep sense of purpose. Powerful. Powerful, powerful. Really cool stuff. Ikigai is what they attributed, and it's a philosophy of life, basically. I don't speak Japanese. I can't translate Japanese, well, other than like, domo arigato, Mr. Like, that is about the extent of my Japanese. But ikigai, my rough translation, it just means why you get up in the morning. Like, why you get up, right? What is motivating you to get up in the morning? Do you wake up before your alarm? Do you? Do you get up ready to go? Like, I'm going to crush life today. I am going to win the gold medal of getting out of bed. Right? Like, just start the day like it. You're going to laugh. Don't judge me. I know you're going to be filtering information. You're judging me right now just by saying that. But since I was 18 years old, I get up between 4:30 and 5 a.m. every single day. A few people here have rented rooms in my villa. They can attest for this. They've seen it happen. It's true. I don't make this up. But that's just me. And what's really interesting, this is a little like side note, I'm going off script here, but basically, this little window that I have, these 2 hours, because I only sleep 6 hours a night, typically 10 to 4, that's my like sweet spot. I feel really good at 6 hours. Do the math on this. Just humor me. Right? People often say, well, how do you do everything that you do? Well, because I don't sleep 8 hours, I only sleep 6. You do the math on a full year, I get an extra month. No, I'm dead serious. I'm serious. 2 hours a day times 365 days, I have a 13th month. No shit, I'm serious. People laugh, they're like, yeah, right. No, do the math. It is legit. So yeah, I did the Gary Vee side hustle. I did my fitness. I did my daily rituals would happen in these 2-hour window before my kids would get out of bed, 5 to 7. You know, this is when I did all my stuff. You know, do we need that much sleep? Do we really need 8 hours? I challenge you. If you're living a certain life and you're in alignment with your passion and your purpose and you're getting out of bed before the alarm and you're excited and you're feeling good, who's to say you can't function on 6 hours? Sleep faster. I like that. Oh, a little hashtag there. Nice one, Sasha. I like that. So when you look at Ikigai, you know, we all have a mission. Maybe if you do what the world needs, you also look at what you can get paid for. Well, that sort of aligns you with this vocation category. Then we have, you know, there's certain things that we're good at. Maybe you've heard the term zone of genius. You know, these natural things that you excel at. And maybe you get paid for some of these. Okay, what is that? Okay, typo, profession. And then you got what you love and what you're good at. That's more of a passion. It might be more of a hobby, right? So you can sort of see this Venn diagram because this is a nice understanding of this. But this is the area to sort of aim for. Just aim for it. You may not get there at any one point, but just that journey of going for it, it makes things pretty darn fun. All right, Ikigai. Now, I talked about people that live to be 100. And these people are thriving. Like, literally, I would like to have a little bit of the juice that they got, whatever it is. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, there was a woman named Bronnie Ware, an Australian lady that was an RN, I believe. But either way, she tended to people at end of life. Looking after people when they're sick, they're at that final stages. Lots of different ages. These aren't people that are into the hundreds, right? These are people that are 60s, 70s, 80s. She had a great bedside manner. She took it upon herself to actually have conversations with these people and talk to them. And she would ask a question. Is there anything that you regret not doing in life? Anything that you regret not doing? Have you guys ever thought about that? Like is there anything that you regret not doing? I regret not coming to Bali a lot sooner, you know? But I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I've done it, you know? But there's 5 regrets that almost every single person had at least one of them. Do you want to know what these are? You want to know what they are? Okay, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you anyways. Whether you said yes or no, it's rhetorical. Doesn't matter. I just wanted a little bit of serotonin to be released. Okay, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. If you can relate to that, just put your hand up. I went to university, started with the sciences. My dad was a veterinarian, and I was like, okay, nepotism at work. I will get a sweet gig. I will already have an existing company. My dad will be really proud of me. He'll love me a lot more. I'm going to be a vet. I went to Vancouver for this. I discovered marijuana. I got on the opposite end of the dean's list. And, you know, I failed calculus 3 times. You know what happens when you do that at UBC? They send you a letter to say, we don't want your money anymore. And I realized, you know what, sciences aren't for me. My heart wasn't in it. Was not passionate about that at all. I love animals, but not enough to dedicate my life to them. So you see how they take temperatures sometimes with dogs? No, you trust me, it's not pretty. But where was I going with this? I don't even know. Anyways, this idea that we do things for the sake of others, especially acceptance of others, or fear of judgment, worried about what people will think about us, influences some of the things we do. The next one, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Oh man! I missed some pretty good firsts with my kids when they were younger. Why? Because daddy was closing a deal. I was at a trade show. I was blah, blah, blah. Doing something, you know? I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And remember, these are people on their deathbed, right? They're reflecting back. They're sharing this with the woman, saying, you know, these are the things I regret. Next one. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Oh, man. This one hits home, and I'll tell you why in a second. I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. This is obviously pre-social media. We have tools that allow us to do it, but really heartfelt conversation, right? Not just a quick WhatsApp. Reno, what's up? What's up? Right? Like, it's more than that. Like, really connecting. Wish I hadn't lost touch with my friends. This is the one that always hits me the hardest. This implies that happiness is a choice. Like, we can be very proactive with the level of happiness in our lives. Like, we can actually choose to be happy. Do you believe that? I do. My wife has a really cool way of reminding me. We've been together now 20 years, and this never gets old. And I get really sick of it when she does it. But it's amazing what significant others learn about us. They know how to push the right buttons. But she has this habit: if my attitude sucks, or my kids' attitudes I'm become a dumper Dave, or my kids become downer Debbies, or whatever. She has this tendency to look at us and go, kindness! Okay, she's a redhead, fiery. She wears her heart on her sleeves, biggest heart. For those that know her, she was here for 2 years up until July, very active in the communities. But this term, she would just scream it, like shrill voice, like, kindness! And I couldn't help but laugh. Like instantly my attitude shifts, as much as I hate it. It's like Dumb and Dumber. You remember Dumb and Dumber? You want to hear the most annoying sound in the world? You guys remember that? To me, that's the equivalent. I mean, she might as well take her fingers and put it on a chalkboard, like it's awful. But I laugh. Like instant mood shift. Because it's that quick. It's that fast we can actually shift if we choose to and if we want to. I wish I would let myself be happier. I wish I'd choose to be more happy. That is something I do not want to regret. I don't know about you, but I think it's a pretty good one not to regret. Interesting. So on one side, we've got people that are thriving at 100. On the other side, we've got people that are regretting a bunch of stuff that they didn't do. We can learn from both ends of those spectrums. Both. We're all raising our collective awareness right now. You can't unlearn what I just shared you. You can ignore it. You can pretend that you weren't here tonight. But you now know this stuff. What are you going to do about it? That's up to you. The neat thing about passion and purpose, right, just as concepts, they sound really cool. Ikigai makes it sound really cool, like we can really figure out what we want out of life and now make very specific decisions and choices to help us align with that. But very often we get stuck, don't we? It's like, okay, I am passionate. I'm excited. I want to do something great with my life. I feel like I've got a greater cause. I need to help others realize that life's even better than possibly imagined, right? Like we have this deep sense of why we want to do things. And then we're like, but how do I do it? Right? Like it's like, how? You're not alone. I mean, we all question the how. I think it's why e-courses are such a good business, aren't they? We're investing in the how a heck of a lot. But it's just a process. There's lots of processes out there that we can adhere to. Other people have probably had success in the areas that we want to have success in. Or they've overcome challenges that we want to overcome. As they say, the proof's in the pudding, right? Like there's actual documented cases. But have you taken the time to actually look into that for yourself? A lot of us don't. We're just go. We're thinking about the possibility of a future that may never happen. Or we're thinking about all the stuff that we've already done that, well, we can't undo it. Yet we like to watch it like reruns on Netflix, right? It's just like, I'll just watch that series again. Why? Knowledge versus wisdom. This is a tomato. What's a tomato? Fruit. Seth is a smart man. I would say a vegetable at times. It's also why I'm not a vet. But it's a fruit. This is general knowledge. Now, who's ever made a fruit salad before? Did you put a tomato in your fruit salad? No, because what happens? It ruins it. This is wisdom, okay? So that's just the easy way to understand the difference between knowledge and wisdom. One is very much knowledge in action, practical application of what we learn. And yes, we make mistakes at times. Lots of mistakes. We fail forward, we fail fast, but we get up faster. So having this understanding of wisdom, right? It's pretty important. But belief systems and some of our limiting beliefs. You've probably heard that term. If anybody's ever heard of Anthony Robbins, he talks about this a lot about self-limiting beliefs and fears and how it really holds us back from truly achieving what we most want, even following processes. So I want to just challenge you with a little exercise, just to challenge your understanding of knowledge versus wisdom based on influences that maybe you're not even aware have influenced you. So here's the vision. You're on a tropical island. Like it's almost like Bali, right? But not Bali, okay? You're on a tropical island. You have all the water you can handle, so you won't die of dehydration. So that's covered. Yet you only have 6 foods to choose from to sustain your life for a full year. Okay? Everybody got it? Here's the foods. Pretty good deal. Chocolate, alfalfa sprouts. We got peaches. We got corn. It is non-GMO. Don't worry about it. We've got bananas, non-GMO. And so we'll just pretend it's all non-GMO because I know, well, actually, if I was in Ubud, I'd have to reword this. But we got hot dogs, okay, without the condiments. No condiments, okay? I have people always say, well, do I get the ketchup on that? No. And spinach. All right, I want everybody to now pick one. Which is the one that's going to allow you to sustain your life the best for the next year? Pick one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Ready? You're all going to show your hands. Everyone's hand better go up because you've all picked one. No changing. No changes. Okay. Ready? You ready? Okay, here we go. Who picked bananas? All right. Good. Glad to see that. 42% of the thousands of people that they surveyed picked bananas. It was the number one pick. I feel like I'm on Family Feud. All right. Who picked spinach? Okay. Got some spinach lovers. Popeye. All right. What about corn? Wow, the French Canadians. Look at this. That's interesting. That's really interesting. I like it. I like it. All right. What about alfalfa sprouts? Who picked that? Okay, we got some of you picked alfalfa sprouts. Good. Well, now peaches. Anybody pick peaches? Good. Okay, right on. I like peaches too. What about hot dogs? Anybody pick hot dogs? Yes, Reno. Probably the only honest man in the lot. I like it. What about chocolate? Who picked chocolate? Anybody? Okay. So I've been in the nutrition space for over 20 years as well. So I have a different understanding to this. But we're talking about sustaining your life the best. You've got one food source for a whole year. You got all the water covered. You got nice vitamin D coming from the sunshine. But you only can choose one food. What's going to sustain your life the best? And when we actually get down to the science, and again, I'm not getting into a debate about animals and all this stuff, but we're talking about your life here. Sustain your life. These two are your best options. Yeah, right? Hot dogs and chocolate, sign me up. Where do I get off? Well, let's just put it this way. Okay, so I'm just going to, this is not a nutrition talk, by the way. And I'm not saying that go out and just eat hot dogs and chocolate. Please, don't misquote me. It'd be like being in the Game Changers all over. Have you guys seen Game Changers? I'm the bacon guy. I'm the bacon guy in Game Changers. There's like a little clip of me on the media and saying, yeah, so I can eat bacon? Absolutely. And that's it. That's my appearance. And there was like a 3-minute on the news segment, and they totally just take me out of context. But anyways, that's another story. Chocolate and hot dogs, they're animal proteins. They're complete proteins. All your essential amino acids. There comes a point, especially if you have 1 year on an island, and you get down to serious calorie deficit, you need some proteins, especially some of the essential proteins, to at least be able to sustain your muscle mass. Because you lose muscle mass, it's not too long before you die. Your metabolism slows down. It gets really messy really quick. Look at concentration camps. Bad example, but there was serious calorie deficit. Famine, right? It's awful. But popular media, all right? Media influences every single one of us. Our belief systems are influenced by things that we've read, things that we've heard, things we've seen online, the most popular meme, like whatever. Do you ever sit down and question some of the things that you believe? Like really question why you believe it. And when I read about this survey and I saw the data, because they also did this with purchasing decisions, with politics, like how people vote. It's amazing to see how media, morality as well, and a lot of just misconceptions around myths influence some of our decisions that we don't even realize we're making. We're like on autopilot. Fascinating stuff. Remember I showed you the sand at the beginning? There's a lot of things we don't see. But there's a lot of things we can, but we choose not to. Pretty wild. Yeah, hot dogs and chocolate. Hello. All right. Belief shifts biology. You're going to humor me for a second. Close your eyes. We're going to meditate. No, we're not. Okay, close your eyes. Everybody closing your eyes? Okay. I want you to envision. You go to your fridge. You open the fridge door. You pull out this beautiful yellow fruit called a lemon. You now take the lemon. You walk to your counter. You pull out a knife. You cut the lemon in half. Juices start flowing down the side of the lemon, down your hand, down the knife's blade. You pick that half of lemon up, you bring it to your nose, you smell it. Oh, wow, acetic acid. Natural sugars. You know it's sour, but you take it to your mouth, and you bite into that lemon, and you suck the juices out of it. Like, I mean, really, get in on it right now. Like, suck those juices. All right, you can open your eyes. Now, what's really cool here is whose mouth started salivating just a little bit. Just a little bit, maybe a lot. I saw some of you with your eyes because you're like, you're like full on. Did you really suck on a lemon? No, you didn't. Yet, did you notice the physical response that just happened by you visualizing that you were sucking on a lemon? It is crazy the effect this muscle between these ears of ours has on us. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. This is super interesting. I don't know if you've seen the movie Heal. It's a great documentary. Yeah, Joe Dispenza has a lot of influence in this. If you don't know who Joe Dispenza is, I recommend looking him up. Pretty interesting stuff around epigenetics, power of the mind on our bodies and on our biology. What's super interesting, this radical remission book has looked at, I think it's upwards of 1,600 cases of people that have come down with a form of cancer but refused traditional treatments. So they opted not for chemo or any of the other more westernized medical treatments in favor of more lifestyle options. You'll notice there's 9 things. That now they found there was like 82 or 83, I forget the exact number, markers, or like things that people attributed to why, like these are actual actions they took to fight the cancer, to get well, to get healthy. But of every single person, those nearly 1,600 respondents and participants in this research, they all shared these 9 things. It's kind of weird because I showed you the power 9, right? These people lived to be 100 plus. There was 9 recurring elements. And here yet, there's also number 9 again. I'm like, wow, this is kind of interesting. Coincidence? Probably. But I thought it was pretty neat. But isn't this neat? These are things that all of them did, and they all survived their cancers. They actually went into remission. Pretty fascinating. You know what's really super cool? These 2 things, everything else, do you notice all that stuff? It's more lifestyle, action-based stuff. Those 2 actually involve you doing something different, like actually fueling yourself with something different, but also supplementing with some herbs, possibly, some vitamins, that kind of stuff. It's really neat. You should do some research in vitamin C. I don't know if you guys have looked into it, but vitamin C is like the super vitamin. They've done studies where they've actually taken cancer cells, put them in these environments, and they've dosed it with mass amounts of vitamin C, and it's totally crushed the cancer. Vitamin C. Ascorbic acid is super cheap. Like, it's like so inexpensive because you can't patent this stuff, man. Like, you can't, right? It's pretty neat. But you look at some of these studies that are happening, we don't hear about them. We just don't. Why? I mean, we could get into all this sort of debates, and we could talk about pharmaceuticals, damn, blah, blah, blah. But you can't argue with this stuff. This is all stuff we can choose to do. Just like the Power 9 principles. Can we implement that into our own lifestyles? Well, yeah, we can. Will you see a positive result even if you adopt one of them? Yes, you will. Simple, right? Simple. 5 tips to stay more positive, because this all comes down to the mindset piece, right? So here I'm talking about the power of the mind, the power of our choices, the power of the actions that we follow it up with. These are 5 things that I've noticed help people stay positive. All right? Surround yourself with good people. Great. You've already got that one covered. Look where you are. Ask yourself, is this true? When it comes to these limiting beliefs, these things that we have about ourselves that hold us back, it could be fear of judgment, fear of I'm not good enough, no one likes me, I'm too short, I'm too fat, I'm too tall, whatever, I'm too whatever, right? You have to ask yourself, honestly, is this true? Is it true? I think back to when I was 14. Some of the things that went through my mind and all those limiting beliefs, all those beliefs I had that I thought were absolutely true. Thank goodness I didn't buy into it. My life would be very different today. Find that silver lining, right? And positive mental attitude, PMA. Napoleon Hill, if you guys Think and Grow Rich, he talks about positive mental attitude, hashtag. It's this idea that we just take a positive approach. That's an optimistic view on life. It's pretty cool to wake up like that. And I'm not saying put on the rose-colored glasses and just kumbaya yourself to live in life, but there comes this point where you have to really look at the situation and ask yourself, okay, well, could it get worse? Or what is the worst that can happen? Tim Ferriss, beautiful TED Talk, all about fear setting. Asking yourself specifically, what is the worst that can happen if I take this action? If I do this thing that I'm really afraid of doing, what is the worst that can happen? I took surf lessons. My instructor took me to Kuta Reef. You guys been to Kuta Reef? It is not beginner friendly. This is bull. He's like, no problem, it'll be good. No, okay, it was hard. What was the worst that could happen? I could die. Right? But for the most part, you know, death is not actually even on the table. What is one of the biggest fears that people have in life? Public speaking, exactly. What's really the worst that can happen? I give this mic to somebody, ask you to come up here and start talking. What is the worst that can happen? I mean, if you drop down dead, I'll feel really bad. So we won't do that. But really, we have all these things that come up that typically aren't real. So we have to challenge them. Have a positive mindset. Just go for it anyways. Don't worry. You're not going to die. Well, usually. Limit your exposure to media. That's why I was sharing you that slide earlier. But our belief around the chocolate. Morality influences a lot of our beliefs. We attach labels very, very quickly. I know I do this too. Remember we talked about the judgment calls? We have those 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day that go through our head. We have to figure out a way to just basically understand all this messaging, figure out what's actually relevant to us versus what isn't. Morality, what we attach good versus bad. A lot of people look at chocolate, especially hot dogs. Whoa, that's bad. It's a bad food. It's unhealthy. It's going to give me cancer. We have all these very quick decisions, but it's often based on moral belief, right? Let's just take morals out of it. Let's actually look at this more objectively, right? Because not in every situation is that belief going to be true. I.e., if you're on a deserted island and you've only got hot dogs to choose from, trust me, a few days fasting, you're going to look at it pretty darn quick, and you're going to wish you had condiments, of course. But exposure to media. And then offer value. And this is the piece that I love most. Dr. Wayne Dyer wrote a book called The Shift. And he talks about this thing, as we get older, and I've actually been experiencing this. I saw my dad experience it, but more on the flip side. What I experienced as I was turning 40 and moving into my early 40s was this idea of myself, the idea of my ego. Like I was chasing success. I wanted all this stuff. I wanted the recognition. I wanted everything that came with it. But then as I started to go through this period of my life where I was like, well, why do I want all this stuff? What's it really going to do for me? When I look back at my life, am I going to think, man, I'm really glad I got all this stuff? Like, is that really what I'm going to think about? No, of course not. And he talks about the shift that we have where we start going from I or me to more we or to them. This idea of making the world better than it is when we got here. Better than it was, when we got here. So this greater impact. This idea of offering value and helping others. These simple little things can shift that mindset so quickly. And it only takes a few days. Literally. Actually, even one day. If you woke up tomorrow and just did a couple of those, some pretty cool things would happen. I know it would. Your energy is going to shift. Your belief systems will start to shift. The way you show up will start shifting. Those little things that have been nagging at you, they might become very, very painful. Because all of a sudden your belief systems start to be challenged, and that belief, that acceptance of those little nagging things, you're just going to become less and less tolerant. It'll be amazing how empowered you will feel and start making some of these changes. None of these cost any money. It doesn't cost anything, you know? All right. Mindset activities. These are just a couple examples of activities you can do. You can try any one of these. There's been some studies where they've actually looked at people that are suffering from HIV, and what they found was these people that they could either do just the drugs, the pharmaceuticals, and then they took another group and they used the drugs and the pharmaceuticals, but they also had them do at least one of these activities on a daily basis. At the end of the study, they found that the people that not only adhered to taking the medications, because the people that were just taking the meds actually weren't adhering to it, they weren't taking it consistently, because they didn't have this real connection to why they were doing it. They didn't want to do it. There was just reasons that would pop up. It was just they weren't motivated to keep along that track of treating the ailment. But the people that did these activities, they actually found at the end of the study, they had less amounts of the virus in their systems. Really interesting. Remember I talked about this idea of belief shifts biology. There's study after study on this. You just pretended that you're sucking on a lemon and you started salivating, okay? So that's just that little tip of the iceberg there. You got to go deep. You have to decide to look into this more. So here's a few questions, and I know we're getting towards the end here, and I wanted to leave these questions with you. I told you those questions at the beginning are very important for you to ask yourself, and they are. And if you don't ask yourself, find somebody that can ask you them, you know? Like, look at somebody in this room and say, hey, let's just get together, let's go have a coconut or coffee, or recently William introduced me to a really cool drink. You get a coconut, and you get a double espresso, and you put the double espresso in the coconut. Dude, I had that right before I spoke. You probably tell. I'm like, woo! But these questions, right? What do I want in my life? I used to say, what do I want? I used to ask people, what do you want? And they'd be like to watch on Netflix or like to order off Grab? Like, what do you mean, what do I want? Okay, well, what do you want in your life? A lot of us probably don't take the time to even ask this question. Why? Because it's a big question. Take some honest reflection, some introspection. Takes a little time to really get to the nut of what do I want. Does it mean we shouldn't be asking it? No, of course we should be asking it. Now, follow it up with this. What don't I want in my life? I find some people, they can't identify what they want, so I'll just go right to this question right away because they're very quick to tell me what they don't want. Sometimes it's easier to do that. It's easier to start with, okay, well, I know I don't want a 9 to 5. I know I don't want to be in Vancouver, Canada. Oh, damn. You know, like, there's certain things that we don't want. Create a list. Because in going through that process, you'll start to see naturally these things that you do want start to appear. Then, here's the big one. What do I need to do to change this? Oh man, I told you it'd be rocket science. You see, if I told you this at the beginning, everybody would stand up and walk out. I gotta wait till the very end to show this stuff. Because, I mean, this is really the gist of it. What do I need to do? What is the action I need to do? Who do I need to know to help me with this? It is not rocket science. It's not like me going to become a vet. Calculus, bloody hell. It's literally just getting very clear on what process do I need to start to adopt? What habits or rituals do I need to make non-negotiable based on what I want in my life? And then you know what you got to do? Just do that stuff. It's like, whoa. Yeah, I can be your life coach. We're done. Now, change, before I finish here. What I noticed when I reflect back on some of the biggest changes, some of those that I've heard another part of my story, it was 10 years ago. And this is the power of questions, when I really started looking into questions and how they influence us. It was a question my wife asked me. But I just celebrated on January 1st, this dawn of a new decade. Because at the beginning of the previous decade was the last time I had a drink. Alcoholic drink. I drink water, it's all that good stuff, you know. But it's been 10 years now since I've had alcohol. Started 2010. And I just brought in a new decade, and no alcohol for the last 10 years. It was wild. It's like amazing how fast time goes, but it's also how amazing things can shift and change for us. She asked me one question. A few people that know me from Toastmasters have heard me reference this question before. And it's a question that I would encourage you, invite you, to put in the back of your mind and think about asking yourself, but as it relates to you. You might have to reframe it a little bit. But my wife, at the end of a very heated discussion where I thought she was going to leave me and take my kids away, she looked at me and she just asked, Di, are you being the type of man that you would want to marry your daughters? Whew. You being the type of man that you'd want to marry your daughters? It's like getting kicked between the legs and punched in the nose at the same time. And pardon the pun, but it was extremely sobering. It was that question shifted everything. That one little question. And I feel very grateful that she took it upon herself to ask me that. But when I reflect back on all these changes, which I felt at the time were really, really hard to make. Because remember what we talked about at the beginning? Going through the change, and when you're going through that troubled period where everything feels hard, it feels like it's impossible. It feels like, is it almost worth it? Is it worth going through this right now? Going through the pain of the change? Of course, we got to think about what happens once we get through it. But there's 3 little questions you can ask yourself to make the change a little bit more manageable, a little bit easier. First one is, can I do this? Can I do this? I mean, how do you prove that question? You look around, and like when I was 14 and I wanted to lose all that weight, I was like, well, I want to lose all this weight. I want to change. Can I do this? Well, I started looking around. I started looking at some of the kids I knew at school that were really fit, the hockey guys. Fortunately, one guy was really nice to me, and I went to the gym with him. He showed me how to use some of the equipment. He helped me. I went to the library, got some books. Can I do this? Can I educate myself to figure out how to do this? Yeah, you can. Once you've got a yes to this question, then you go to number 2. If I do this, will it work? Will it work? Fortunately for me, I saw a lot of other people that were getting results. In today's day and age, you can't help but look online and you can find people getting results in areas that potentially we want to get results in. Of course, it might be the smoke and mirrors aspect, and that's just part of that channel, if you will. But I think there's a lot of authenticity out there too. So you just got to do your searching, right? If you do this, will it work? Yeah, it will. Once you get that yes, you're ready for number 3. Number 3. This is the one most people skip over. Is it worth it? And you know what? That's actually not the right question. Because I would like you to stand in front of the mirror and go through this dialogue, locked eye to eye, as you ask these 3 questions. And when you get to that 3rd one, you ask, am I worth it? No one else can answer that for you. I mean, there's lots of people that love us that would say, yes, you are worth it, but do you believe you are worth it? And if the answer is no, I want to push back on that. Just means you got to do a little bit of digging. You got to do a little bit of work. 10 years ago, when I took away the alcohol, I had to do a lot of work. That was my crutch for dealing with everything. Stress, social anxiety, standing in front of a group of people, hell no. I needed at least 3 drinks of me before I would do that. Seriously, like that was how I dealt with that, you know? And then I took that crutch away and I was like, oh man, I got to learn how to walk now. I got to learn a healthy way of dealing with this stuff. Was it worth it? Was I worth it? I didn't believe so at the time when I started. I'd made a lot of mistakes, done a lot of things I regret. But I also knew that by making the changes and living through those, I was killing off the old guy and living into somebody new that I really wanted to be. And I knew he was worth it. So, find a community. Find a community. Because as much as those 3 questions are, and you're going to ask yourself that, look at yourself in the mirror, an army of one is a hard army to lead, you know? Because all the excuses can come up, all the difficulties, all the reasons why not to do what we've just said we were going to do happens. But if you can find a community of people that are truly interested in you becoming the best version of you, and they're there to challenge you, hold you accountable, motivate you, rise you up, you'll keep going. 16 months ago, I had a crazy idea where I was like, I need to not be so judgmental of other men. I need to start authentically connecting with men and not being so guarded that I can't be vulnerable with men. Because I looked at my relations in my life, it was a lot of women because I was threatened by dudes. I'd look at them, I'd size them up, I'd judge them, I'm like, whatevs. You know, like, I just was closed off. As much as I tried to be open, I was closed off. Called my friend Nick up in Ubud. I'm like, hey, so I got this idea. We're going to start Mentorship Monday, capital M-E-N. So sorry, ladies, you can't come. But you know, we started this group of guys coming together to share dinner and discussion and authentically share with one another. No judgment, no shame, no blame. Just simply connecting. One guy speaks at a time, much like a circle. Pretty powerful. Some of the best relationships I've created and being able to foster here. You guys know who you are, right? When you come to Mentorship Monday, we got this thing where we pound our chest. I know it's kind of, well, it's kind of cavemanish, but either way, it makes you feel pretty good. So if you ever see some guys out here in the restaurants and they start doing this, they've probably been to Mentorship Monday. We start to see this, and it's like an inside joke. But now you're in on it, so anybody can pound their chest. It's okay. But what's really cool, it's been some of the deepest relationships and some of the biggest learning has happened because I've been able to be vulnerable with people that I previously used to feel threatened by. Something very cathartic in that, something very healing, nourishing. So I ask you, where's your community? Where is your ability to get real with who you are, be vulnerable, take down the walls, pass the judgments, put them aside, and really be authentically you without the fear of being judged? If you don't have that, go find it. Just go find it. It's there. It's out there. I know it's there. If you're a dude, come check out Mentorship Monday. It's every Monday for the last 16 months, religiously, every Monday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Nirvana Strength. Come join us. It will continue. Even though I'm going, it's going to continue. I'll be there in spirit. I won't tap in, though, because of the time change. It's like I'll be asleep. If you're during my 6-hour window of sleep, I won't be up. but it will continue to go. I know my wife used to run the women's version of this until she went back to Canada, and there wasn't anybody that kept it going. So if you want to keep it going or you want to start up one, Nirvana is a great place to host it. So reach out to me if you're interested. All right. This is one thing to think about as we come to the close here. I read Gary Keller's book, The One Thing. It really impacted me because I've been telling you about questions that guide us, right? The questions that we're probably afraid to ask ourselves are the ones we really need to be asking ourselves. There's one question that I absolutely love is if, this. What's the one thing that I can do that by doing that one thing, it makes everything either easier or not required? I find a lot of people that are struggling with health changes, it could be just going to the gym. They know that if they go to the gym, and I have some clients that I coach more on the lifestyle side of things, and if I can just get them to instill that one habit every day, just get a workout in, move your body with some purpose for 30 minutes a day, if they do that one thing, everything else becomes easier for them because that was the thing that was going to challenge them most. Brian Tracy calls it eating the frog. If that was the hardest thing, I mean, French people do it all the time, but, right, Pierre? Right? But eating the frog, if that was the hardest thing you had to do in a day, he argues, do it first thing in the morning so the rest of the day you get to look forward to, right? Makes sense. So think about that question too, because that's going to come down to taking action, right? This is really what it all boils down to. When you're looking in the mirror, what do you see? What do you see? Right? You see a lion. I hope you do. I really do. Because I know there's people in your life that when they look at you, they see a lion. And I'm sure they'll remind you every time they get a chance they get. I know my wife. She reminds me of the man I've always wanted to be. She holds me accountable to a lot of my actions. Not just because she loves me a lot, unconditionally, but also because I know she deserves it. She knows she deserves the best version of me. Your friends deserve the best version of you, your family, your communities, but especially yourself. And that's what it comes down to, self-reflection. All right, I've got a little video here to end it up. I'm going to need to put the audio on, Auntie. I'm going to hit this whole